Okay, just as we're starting here, we get an earthquake. Can you believe that? So, just 1 minute ago, there was an earthquake. This whole place was shaking pretty badly. So, it didn't last too long, though, fortunately, just a few seconds, but pretty big earthquake. It seemed pretty strong, but just brief. So, so welcome, guys. This is like what a way to start. What a way to start a live stream. This is like the second time I had a live stream once. You'll find it's from some years ago, 3 years ago maybe. That right at the beginning of my time on YouTube, and I was talking about ham radio, emergency radio, so to handle a emergency situation. And guess what? There was an earthquake and there was an emergency, and I was actually able to demonstrate the value of a ham radio during the emergency. So yep, just got the earthquake, and it looks like it's okay here, but it was kind of a violent shake for a very short period of time. So it didn't last that long. I'm gonna say 15 seconds, not that much, not that long. So when it lasts like a minute, that's when it's like gonna cause a lot of damage. So anyway, guys, welcome. And the topic tonight is gonna be extended. I'm not sure we're gonna have time to do much Q&A here. So I'm gonna integrate the questions into the topic, and I'm actually going to do two topics tonight. And one topic will be about the phone number question. And then the second topic is about the question of setting up your own email server. Is that even doable? And what are the issues with that? And I just want to educate you on it so you understand what the choices are. Because most people don't actually realize the choices. And then when I give them the choice and I said, it's going to cost X, the reaction is, oh, that's too much. Okay, but you got to understand what you're getting. So for certain people like me, it's not really a choice. It's not a choice for me. It has to be done. So anyway, that'll be in part two. So what I think I'm going to do then is talk about the phone number section and the first part of this, the first 30 minutes or so. And then we'll continue on in part two for the rest of the broadcast, and then we'll see where we get, because it's kind of a complex question. And yes, some people were saying you need to take notes. You may actually need to take notes on the second part specifically. So yeah, so you need to actually get ready for that, because it's complicated. If some of you are actual Linux experts or know something about Linux, it'll be a lot easier. You can actually maybe try it out based on what I explained. But if you're not knowledgeable, then I'll tell you why it's so difficult to set up an email server. Okay, so that'll be in part two. So part one is triggered by an event. So something actually happened to me that triggered the topic of the phone number. And the trigger, by the way, is Google. So what Google did was say to me, if I want to keep my YouTube channel, that's pretty hardcore. If I want to keep my YouTube channel, I better do what they say, or then I'm not going to be able to keep my YouTube channel. That's basically what they said. Okay, and so I was left kind of with an issue here. I mean, for some of you, if you don't have a YouTube channel, you can probably ignore Google. But in my case, that was a pretty significant question, and this is kind of like. Kind of a similar thing with the situation today, where people are forced to do something that they don't necessarily want to do for whatever reason. You know what I'm talking about here, right? I'm not going to mention it, but it's kind of the same thing. Google decided to force the issue because, we're going to mandate this. This is the way it's going to be. There are no options. There's no going to be no conditions. There's no escape. There's no exemptions. No exemptions. You are going to need to do this. And what they said I need to do is give them a phone number. In order to keep my channel, I had to give them a phone number for two-factor authentication. Now, talk about communist, James Mason. Talk about communist. Let me just explain this to you. There are so many ways of doing authentication. I don't have to use a phone number. There are options. The options are Google Authenticator or Authy. That's the same thing. It's called TOTP. Time on time password. Okay? So you can create a password based on time that does not require you to give out a phone number. They don't give that option. You know, like using a YubiKey or something like that. They don't give that option, guys. They don't give an option for hardware. They don't give an option for doing Google Authenticator or Authy. No, the only option was I had to give a phone number. So you're going to face this situation, and which raises the question, how many phone numbers do you need? And so I've been thinking about this, and I actually had to strategize. And I'll tell you that I have several phone numbers, and I pay for 2. So I'll give you kind of the summary of how I'm using that. But that's the way that we are dealing with in this world. Some platforms are now requiring that you give a phone number. Now, let me just tell you why that's bad news. If you watch my last video, and a lot of people did not watch my last video, but if you watch my last video, I was talking about the biggest danger today that we don't even realize, and that danger is the contact list. And what the contact list problem is that people make a contact list on their phones. Your family probably does. All of your email contacts are accumulated on your Outlook or whatever app you're using for your email, and then you put your phone numbers in there for your business contacts, your friends, and so on. And that contact list would be okay if it just stayed on your device. The problem is we don't do that anymore. We upload our sucking contact list to cloud apps, mainly because they say, oh, you want it available on every device. So if you upload the contact list to Google, then you can go on any device and see your contact list. And the other reason is, oh, you want to share your contact list because you can share your schedule and your calendar and so on. So we're going to use Google Docs and all this, Google Calendar and so on. So go share all that into the system with your contact list. And then the other thing that happens is on social media, the social media platforms, starting with LinkedIn. LinkedIn was the biggest one of this. They they encouraged people, they hounded you actually at the beginning of LinkedIn. They hounded you to upload contact lists. And this was true of apps like Telegram at the very beginning. Apps like Telegram also pushed that because that was the secret to social media. That is one of the reasons that Braxme, my social media app, never took off. The reason Braxme never took off was there's no way to invite contacts. Because that's the way you do it. You invite your contacts and everybody sees each other on the platform and then say, oh, we're all on the same platform so we can talk there. And I didn't do that. And the reason is, I said, never mind, if I don't need to be successful if I'm going to be making that kind of sacrifice where I actually cheat you, as many of these apps do, by having you upload a contact list. So what is the problem with the contact list? Well, what is in the contact list? Your phone number, your real name, okay? Not your fake name. Your real name is on the contact list because who made the contact list? Not you. This is the problem, guys. You don't make the contact list. Other people do. You're just on it. So whatever they know you as, they put it on the contact list, whoever the person is. So if you gave out your real name to people you know, your real name is going to be on the contact list. It doesn't matter what fake name you use on your email address. It makes no difference because it depends on who the person is that put you on their contact list. With your phone number, with your address oftentimes, multiple phone numbers, multiple emails. They put it on the Zucking contact list. Then they upload that to Google, Facebook, Yahoo, Microsoft, Apple, Google, LinkedIn, what the Zuck. So now you have this big collection of data that connects people, because what if you're Microsoft, if you're Google, if you're Apple, what can you do? You can correlate the contact list and look for intersections. Who knows the same people? Who knows the same people? So if you do that, then you have this correlation, and then the same person will come out with different names on different contact lists. They can accumulate all that and say on one contact list you're named Socratic Curiosity. On another contact list you're Jason Jones. And they said, oh, it's the same phone number. It must be the same person using a different name. They will know this just from people uploading your contact list. And one of the biggest offenders, by the way, is Facebook. One of the biggest problems is Facebook. So now we have the problem of the contact list being maintained. That's kind of like a directory, but it's not your simple directory, because it's a directory with a context, and the context is who owns the contact list. So there are obviously hundreds of billions of contact lists out there with correlating entries. Some are the same on many entries, and they can connect all that and come up with what I've been calling a relationship map. That term relationship map came actually from the three-letter agency. It was actually on the Snowden movie. That's what they called it, a relationship map. So, you know, it's a table of relationships, because you can do that with a contact list. So now, given this problem, simply knowing your phone number, see that's the problem here. If they know your phone number, they can now find your identity. Now, why did Google and Facebook, why didn't they say, we'll give you an option for two-factor authentication? You can use, you know, Authy or Google Authenticator or some numeric-based identity that's not dependent on a phone number. No, they don't want to do that. They actually are intentionally forcing us to use a phone number. They're intentionally using us to use a phone number, maybe because the government is telling them to do that. But basically, they're trying to give us an ID. They're trying to lock us in so they know exactly who you are, because they're kind of losing the battle on IP addresses with VPN. So with VPNs, even Google is selling a VPN, if you can believe that. But don't use Google VPN. So because of this, now it turns out that you have a big issue here. You need to escape this contact list, because once you are discovered on the contact list with a phone number, that's it. No more privacy. They know who you are exactly, and then they can match it to the records, find your profile. So Facebook knows not only the phone number, but your connections, and every app that has two-factor authentication, Google, Facebook, and so on, can even correlate or compile their list together and actually come up with an even bigger list that shows who owns what phone number. So that's why it's a very, very big deal. Somebody was telling me, oh, Signal doesn't, you know, collect your phone numbers and all that. So you're flawed. Your criticism of Signal is wrong. It's like, Zuck you. Don't be a sucking idiot. The mere fact that you have to give a phone number to a stranger, let's say a stranger said, we need to talk in Signal. It's, you know, it's important we talk in Signal. We're going to talk business. You don't know who this person is. You know, maybe a business associate. You just don't know them, you know anything about their lives. And you give out a phone number. By doing that, then you're actually then opening up yourself to revealing the rest of your identity, and you're not given a choice. Okay, now back in the old days, you know, aside from looking at the phone book and looking at the phone number, that's all they get. Nowadays, it's a lot more complex than that. A phone number is actually linked to a number of identities that's tied to social media and so on. So it's a very, very big deal. Very, very big deal. So Google said they're going to cancel my, or they're not going to let me continue my YouTube channel if I don't have two-factor authentication with a phone number. So I said, Zuck you, Google. So what did I do? So I got myself, I have a lot of phones. I actually had a phone I wasn't using that I could not de-Google. I had a Samsung S9. Can't de-Google it. I I have not successfully Googled the Samsung S9. So I said, I won't waste this phone. It's a nice phone. So I put a Ting card in there. Ting is what? $5 a month? Because all I'm going to use it for an occasional text. I'm not going to take calls on it. There's no data. I mean, it's mostly not going to be used much. It's just for two-factor authentication. And anytime that Google wants me to validate something that they, and I'll be able to go to my YouTube channel because it's a Google phone. So I have a Google phone, and you can use any cheap phone for this. I have a Google phone with a Ting card, $5 a month. And I'm going to tell you the truth. That phone is off. It's off 99.9% of the time. It's not powered on. Because its only purpose is two-factor authentication. So how many times do I do two-factor authentication in a month? I don't know, once a week at the most. At the most. So it's small enough I can take it with me. I put it in my bag when I go anywhere. And my computer bag. But it's off. It's not going to track my location. It's not going to know anything I do because I don't use it. I don't use it's Googled, which is actually purposeful here. You're actually making sure Google knows everything you want them to know. So if I wanted to make them think a certain way, I will, maybe use it for disinformation like I do my browser. I can, go to certain websites that I want them to think I go to, make them believe what I want them to believe by using that phone for that purpose. And you don't need to get some expensive phone. There's some cheap Google phone. It's Google. You don't have to pay anyone to de-Google it. It's just Google, but you don't use it hardly. So you take some cheap phone, and you can buy a Google phone for under $100, and just use it for that. And now, how do you get the phone number? The best is to not use your current phone number. Use a different phone number for this. So now I use Ting. So Ting.com. What happened to the camera here? Okay, it's okay now with the. Okay, I must have been moving actively in and out. Okay, so anyway, so back to what I was talking about. So I got a cheap Google phone, and it's pretty much going to be used for disinformation. So I only do what Google authorizes me to do and what Google wants me to think. So I'm going to play the game, and it's going to be played with that Google phone. So that's going to be my tool. It's mostly off. It's not going to track location or anything since it's off. It's going to be off. It's not going to have any apps on it. Nothing. Well, I'm running Brax.me on it, but that's about it. Okay? So that's the one phone number. I actually have several phone numbers. I'm trying to remember how many I have. I believe I have 4. Okay, and this is the way I have it set up. Where I can, I use a completely different phone number for 2FA. So, for example, for Twitter doesn't require a real phone number. Many apps don't need a real phone number. Only Google does it because they're not going to accept Google Voice as a two-factor authentication because Google will not accept Google. It's got to be out of band, something different from Google. So Google requires the new phone number, but nobody else does. So I don't have to reveal that phone number to, let's say, Twitter. So Twitter, I use a Google Voice. So I have a Google Voice account, and then that's where they're going to send me authentication, it's going to go to the Google Voice account. And this is what happens. Google Voice then will send the authentication or the message to that phone that I just discuss with you, this new Google phone that I'm using for this. It will actually go to that. So if I ever need authentication, even for Twitter, I can go to my Google app on this phone, on this secondary phone that I'm using with my $5 Ting SIM card, and then that phone will also accept Google Voice, and I have two Google Voice accounts. So 2 Google Voice numbers plus the real phone number, so that phone can handle 3 2FA, 3 two-factor authentication accounts. Okay? So that's how I'm using that. That's how I'm using that. If people call me from the outside, you never reach my actual phone number. You call Google Voice. Then I can choose to pick it up or not. I don't usually pick up my phone. Even my mother can't talk to me because I don't pick up my phone. So don't try to call me because I'm not going to go answer. Okay, so it goes to Google Voice, and I don't really answer to Google Voice. So if you want to talk to me by phone, it's not going to happen. Okay, it's not. Oh, there's Van is giving his phone number. Van is giving his phone number. Okay, so that's the advice I want to give you, is to don't be afraid to Google yourself if it's for this kind of purpose. The problem is so the phone has an identity now, this extra phone I have. Use that to your benefit. It's kind of like using a Google Chrome browser. You know it's for Google, so I'm going to leave it to Google only. So because it's Google only, it doesn't even matter if I watch videos on it or whatever, as long as it's stuff I want Google to see. So it's not a bad thing to do that, but it's not going to be mixed in with everything else I do that's not on Google. If it's on Google, they already know what I'm doing, so they're not going to get any more information. So they're not going to cross match it with anything else I do on the internet. So that's the solution here, is to use that. And now the other thing I did, and I was a little bit more extra careful here, that phone has never logged into my home Wi-Fi. It's on LTE, so it has a different IP address. It has never logged into my home Wi-Fi, and I make sure that it doesn't actually log in to my home Wi-Fi. I have a LTE Netgear M1 hotspot, which is also LTE, so it'll have different IP addresses, so it'll never connect to my home address. That way it doesn't make the connection. Otherwise, the two devices will connect by having the same IP address if you happen to forget to have the VPN on. So I don't have to worry about that. I just never connect it to Wi-Fi. If it's never connected to Wi-Fi, it doesn't even matter if I have a VPN on or not, because of its limited purpose. Okay? So I don't even have to do anything to it. It's just going to be used for two-factor authentication in a very limited way. And most of the time, it's going to be off. 99.9% of the time, it's going to be off. I might use it 4 times a month at the most. At the most. Okay, so again, cost. You can buy any used phone, Googled, for obviously LTE. You can't get 3G for, under $100, $5 a month for the extra phone number. Use Google Voice for additional phone numbers, and then leave your normal phone number that is on many contact lists. Leave that for other purposes. Take that out of social media. Okay, separate that out, because that is on many contact lists. So what happens, just to kind of give you a little summary here, what happens is, because the new phone number is not on anyone's contact list. Remember this, that new phone number is not on anyone's contact list. Since I never give it out, it's not intended to be used for anyone to call me. No one will call me on that phone number. It's only used for two-factor authentication. The result of that is that it's not going to be on any contact list. I think it's an important point. That phone number will not be on any contact list. By the way, I'm using Ting. After the video, I'm going to post a Ting reference, a referral link from Ting. I don't have it on there, but I will post it after the video later tonight. Check it out later on, so that Ting gives me a little kickback if you click on Ting. The Ting is kind of unique because it's good for really casual use, like uncommon use, like $5 a month, for just basically just texting texting and an occasional phone call, it's so minimal. You know, it doesn't cost that much at all. So if you hardly use it, it's not gonna break the bank. So and yet the gain to privacy is almost essential now to have an extra phone number for the reason I just said. So okay, so Ting will give me it basically they pay my bill for the month if you click the referral link. So I appreciate it if you click on it. So I'll post that on there later on. But it's a really great option to do this for cheap. And let's see, what else do you need to do? I remember what I was gonna say, but then I forgot. So never mind. I'll remember later on. The point is, there you go. You have a little bit of a strategy here, and it's simple. And you really got to think about it and think of the threat as being the contact list. Who are you on in a contact list? Yes, you can change your main number. If your main number is too well known and you want to change it, you can change it once. But if you're going to give it out to people, it's going to show up on the contact list. Therefore, that's the problem. So how do you separate that out? By not being on the platform, whatever platform you're afraid of, Google, Facebook, with that phone number, because you'll be quickly identified. If Facebook has your phone number but you're not on Facebook, well, they can't really attack you there since you're not on the platform. Okay? So why the phone is used for the Google YouTube 2FA cannot be a Google phone? Of course, it can be a Google phone. But you're using the Google phone for normal everyday stuff. The Google phone is more costly because there's labor to put the 2FA on it. And Google does not, it's got to be a Google app to do the 2FA. They basically require you to use Google. So I can't do two-factor authentication with Google on a non-Google phone. So they kind of forced me on that. So that's why I'm stuck with that, but I don't really lose much. It's it's not much of a cost. It's not much of a risk, and I can use it for multiple purposes. So it's fine. Okay. So anyway, so that's the story with multiple phone numbers. So take that advice and mess with it. Think about it in your head, and think about the contact list. And see how that fits you. It depends. Some of you, have a business account, and it depends on how much privacy you want. And then we're going to switch topics here and talk about the email server. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to my sponsor, which is Linode. Now, actually, Linode's going to be featured in my next subject matter quite a bit here. Because that's where I tested this scenario on with a Linode server. So Linode, actually, I just did a comparison today. I actually looked for the cheapest server I could get using a standard. There's a term on Amazon AWS. It's called on demand. If you don't do a spot request, which is you have to bid for it and you can only have it temporarily, too complicated for a normal user. But if you're a normal user, I compared the cost of a server, the cheapest server on Amazon, like super cheap, like half a gigabyte of memory, and it was like $26 a month for the cheapest server. And you know that on Linode is $5, all inclusive. Thank you, Trigger Hippie. Thank you. So for $5 a month, it's all complete. You got everything that you need on Linode. So obviously Linode is a lot cheaper. So if you use the link, linode.com/RobBraxman, you will find that you will save much more money on Linode. The other thing about Linode, aside from their tech support being really, really good, is that you can set up servers very easily from just their list of pre-made servers. You can make, for example, XMPP server, Jitsi server. They already have that on their list. And then later on, we'll talk about how to do an email server. So just check that out, Linode Cloud Provider. Okay, now, so we're not going to go Q&A here. So sorry if you think we're going to go Q&A, but because the topic is kind of expanded here. I'm not sure I can really do a normal video, a short video on email servers because a lot of people are not interested in this. It's kind of a specialized deal with email servers. And let me just tell you the problem. Again, it connects to my last video. And the problem is this. I don't really care what you're going to use for your email server, for your email. Some of you want to use Proton Mail. Some of you want to use Tutanota. Some of you want to use Secure. Some of you want to use LavaBit. Some of you are stuck with Gmail. Some of you use Yahoo, Outlook, Apple iCloud, or me.com, whatever Apple offers. And many of you just missed the point of what I've been trying to tell you about email. I mean, email is bad on many, many levels. Many, many levels. But we'll just stick to a narrow level right now, which is your inbox. I'll just generally say email floats around on the internet and goes back and forth in network traffic, and it can be intercepted by government and, state level players. They can intercept that, and people will say, well, there's new encryption now, TLS for MTA servers. And I'm going to tell you, I can beat that very, very easily. Where you think it's secure, and if the provider, meaning the network providers, want to make it available to three-letter agencies, even if you think it's encrypted, they can get away from that and actually remove the encryption. They can remove the encryption really, really easily. So don't come to me and say, because you're so smart, you do email servers all day, you're so smart, you're going to tell me that MTA traffic on port 25 can be encrypted. You're going to go use port 465 and you're going to encrypt MTA to MTA, and so it's going to be flawless and it's going to be secure. Nonsense. That's utter nonsense. Okay? Now, the fact of the matter is, I can't control that. Your traffic is going to be visible on the internet by players like state players that can actually read that kind of traffic. So I'm not going to count that, since I don't have any protection against that other than not use email. So if you're stuck with using email, then you have to accept the fact that the email floating around on the internet is going to be visible to some serious entities. It's not so much the regular hacker. You're really concerned more about the people who run the trunks, the big players, the level 3s, I forget all the different names now of all the different players that run the fiber optic trunks and all that across the nation. They're the ones who can actually visibly see all the traffic on there. We're not going to deal with that since we can't control that. The only answer is stop using email if you're worried about that. So if you're concerned about your email being read by government, don't send email. Okay, beyond that, let's talk now about the inbox. So, assuming that the only threat on the email is government and their buddies reading your mail, the real other problem is your email provider. So, your email provider can read your email. Your email provider can read email sent to your friends that are on their server. For example, if you send an email to Gmail, then of course Gmail can read your email since you sent it to a Gmail account. So there's no hiding that. If you want to be really, really secure, I'm going to tell you a little secret that I think is even more secure than Signal. I can't think of anything more secure than this. It's so simple. So if you want to be extremely secure, have your own email server and give everyone an email address from your own server. So if all the members of your family are talking on the same server, well, all the traffic from your email client to that server is encrypted using TLS. Because it never leaves that server, there's no transfer of that to a different domain. It's called intra-domain. You're in the same domain. If you do all your traffic within the same domain, nobody actually reads it. Nobody can see it. Nobody can see what you're saying. It's actually pretty good. And you don't have to do anything special. You don't have to encrypt your email. You don't have to do anything because you control the server. You have your password. And no one can break into your Linux server if you have your proper cybersecurity rules to make sure that your server is not accessible. So given that, you can see that there's a big difference with running your own server. Now, of course, since you're running your own server, there is no cloud company. There is no Proton Mail to look at your email. There is no third party. There's no Rob Braxman to look at your email. Nobody can look at your email but you, since it's your server. Nobody else has any email on this but you. Now you can see why that is a whole different story, because there's actually no equivalent today. There is no provider of email that can beat your own email server. None. What are you going to offer as competition? Proton Mail? Proton Mail can read your non-encrypted mail, which is what we're talking about here. It's mixed in with encrypted, non-encrypted. They can read every single non-encrypted mail, which is the point. They can read your inbox. They can read your inbox. So therefore, what is the solution? When you have your own server, it's under your control. You can trust yourself, right? You don't have to trust anybody else but yourself. If you're emailing to yourself, if you're emailing to people in your company, if you're emailing to family on the same server, it's under your control. If you want to wipe out the messages, like if you're a Hillary and you want to wipe the messages, you can wipe your own email messages because it's your own. Maybe that's why Hillary made her own server, because then you have full control. So that is the solution. Now, let me just tell you that, again, just to summarize my point here, nothing beats your own server. There is no solution out there for email, if you're going to stick to email, that is more secure. Now, if I were you, what I'd do is I'd get people on email that once you know that they're important people in your life or business, bring them over to XMPP, and then you can talk on XMPP and you don't have to worry about anybody spying on your messages. So you can use the email just kind of like a feeder to something else like XMPP, because you can even run XMPP on your email client. It actually looks like email, but it's not using email, it's using XMPP. So that's what I recommend, XMPP. That's the best way to have a metadata-free connection with people, with not based on phone number, not based on any identifier. In fact, there is no identifier. It's whatever name you choose for XMPP, which is your kind of like it looks like an email address. An XMPP address looks like an email address. So that's what you would use if you're not using email. But if you're using email and if it's your own server, I can't imagine anything more secure than that. Because say, okay, you can even set up your own XMPP server. Some people, there's a discussion group on Brax of people who actually set up their own XMPP server, and they use Linode and they spend $5 a month on their XMPP server. And I don't know anything more private than your own XMPP server. That's about as private as you can imagine. Now, for email, nothing beats, it's not perfect, nothing beats your own email. If you're talking, now this is the interesting thing about email that's your own, if it's your own server. If it's your own server and you're talking intra-domain, meaning people in the same domain, meaning company, family, whatever, if you're all in the same domain, none of that can be read by government either. So if you're worried about the government reading your email, you don't have to if you're all on the same domain. It doesn't even have to be the same domain. It's the same domains that are on the server. So my server has, 10 domains on it. So anyone that I contact within those domains that I own never leave the server, so it doesn't get exposed. It doesn't get sent anywhere for three-letter agency to see. So, I can even send emails to myself, kind of like notes. I can do that. And it would be very safe because it's your own server. It never leaves the server. It doesn't traverse the internet. So that's the value of your own server. Now, having said this, we're going to now go to the next step. Why can't you have your own email server? Okay, now we're into the difficulty here. So I'm going to actually now switch gears and tell you that having your email servers is a very, very complex project. Very, very complex. And I'm going to tell you why, so you understand that this is not something for the faint-hearted if you've never done any work with servers. But if you know how to make a server, I'm going to give you some tips, and those of you who know Linux will be able to set up your own servers if you know some of the general rules that you need to do. Okay, so coming from somebody who understands email here at a deep level, I'm going to explain it to you. Now, in case you don't know how much I understand about email, I wrote my own email client. I actually wrote a product similar to Proton Mail, and I said I'm not going to go sell this. So I know email internally. I mean, I know how to program email. I've done email clients, email servers. So I'm pretty skilled with this. I understand exactly what's going on. I understand what the flaws are. I understand how to break it. I understand its limitations. So I understand all that. So the problem with email, and I actually didn't run my email for, I don't know, at least a decade. I really couldn't. The reason is spammers. Today, one of the biggest ways that you're attacked on the internet is from your email server. If you're running an email server, a spammer is going to attack it, meaning a spam hacker. So it's going to be hacked, and they're going to send, Viagra messages through your server. And then what's going to happen is that your email ISP, or your ISP, whoever is handling your internet traffic, will block you. So what happens is you let's say that you set up a domain Braxme, which is my domain. So I get email for Braxme normally, no problem there. But people are going to send emails through my server with fake from address, and then do a relay from my server to somebody else, and be able to sneak in traffic with fake names, untraceable, except that the fact it came from a fake server using your own server, and it will send a lot of traffic. Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Lance. So the reason that they can do this is because the protocol for doing what is called a relay of email messages on port 25. So if you're a Linux expert, write some notes down. The problem is that the SMTP relay protocol for relaying messages from server to server, called MTAs, is on port 25, and that requires no authentication, no login. So if you have a server that accepts incoming SMTP traffic, and then it's on the same server, it sends out SMT traffic to do a relay, they don't have to be authenticated, and you'll be sending spam. And in a few minutes, in a matter of minutes, your SMTP provider will block you, and you will not be able to send messages. And then you have to hire a cybersecurity expert to figure out how to handle that, because you're going to be hacked. You're going to hack your server, and you're done. And you're going to give up. And I said, screw this. I'm just going to go back to Gmail. That's actually why everybody's gone to Gmail. And this is the problem now, because when you go to Gmail, Outlook, Yahoo, all this, somebody's reading your email. It's only when you have your own email that you have that protection from somebody reading your inbox. You do not have that protection anymore. 99% of you are using a third party for email, meaning somebody is reading it. And so, yes, it's free. Yeah, nothing is free in life. So you want free? Yeah, then stay with those. Now, there's nothing wrong with using Gmail for free. I use it all the time. but I use it for nonsense things, nothing important, like log into apps. I use Gmail for logins everywhere. If there's a new app wants me to log in, I'm going to use Gmail because there's no data. I'm not going to put any serious communications on there. I'm not going to send that email to anybody. Nobody's going to email me on that. When I need somebody to email me, I send them to my own domain, rob@brax.me, on my own server that I own. Nobody else is going to read my messages but me, unless they catch it incoming and outgoing over the internet trunks. But except for that, once it arrives at my inbox, it's locked in. So you can only catch the email en route. You can't catch the email once it's in the inbox. Well, Gmail can. Gmail can read your email all day, all year, every day, and it could be years of email, and they can read that every day. In my case, it can only capture external email during the moment that it traverses. So, given the difficulty of the email problem, let me tell you, so the spam is the number one thing. And because of this, they have put many, many restrictions on email. Many, many, many restrictions on email. One of the biggest restrictions is if you set up an email server, the ISP will block port 25. They don't want you to send SMTP traffic. They will block port 25, which is, what is port 25 on a server? That is the port for sending non-authenticated SMTP relay. Non-authenticated. So, how do I get around this? I got around this. If you're an email expert, you will understand this, but the rest of you who are not email experts, you will not understand this. The solution is very simple. You have to set up 2 servers. 2. One server to accept incoming email only. That's its only purpose, incoming email. That server must not relay. That server will never relay. It only sends mail to the domain that it's supposed to handle email for. It cannot receive mail for other domains. It will not relay. By doing that, spammers will reach a dead end because that's what they want, to use your server to email someplace else. But if you block the relay, so you have to go into the program there and say no relay, so then you have incoming only, incoming mail only. Now, how do you do that? What you do is you set up a Linux server and you install on a Linux server, like let's say you're going to use Ubuntu servers, you're going to install 2 apps, and the 2 apps, well, you're going to install many other apps, but the 2 main things you're going to install, the 2 main applications you're going to install are Postfix, and the other one is Dovecot, Dovecot, Postfix, Postfix, and Dovecot. So you can go, install that on a server, and then you have the beginnings of email. What else do you need from that? You also need to go to your DNS. So whoever's handling the DNS for your domain, you have to set up something called MX records. MX means mail exchange records. So you're going to point and say, for this domain, brax.me, it's going to go to the server mail.brax.me. And that server is the server you just made, and it'll point to that, and then that will then get the traffic for that domain, and then you program it in Postfix to say this will receive mail for brax.me, and it will in fact receive mail, and you will not do a relay so nobody can use it for spam. And the next thing you're going to do is use another program called Dovecot, and Dovecot runs IMAP or POP3, however you want your email client to work with it. So Postfix is the incoming side to put in your inbox, but to connect your inbox, you need another program which is called Dovecot. Okay, so there you go. Now you have incoming mail, problem solved. Safe, no issues. Now it's a little bit hard to configure, but it can be done. Somebody like me can do it in a few hours. Somebody who doesn't have the knowledge will take a long time. Now, what is not included in everything I say is SMTP outgoing. So outgoing is not part of this. Outgoing is very, very restricted now. So I said, how do we do this? What is the solution? Well, if you want, there are companies that do SMTP outgoing. They actually will sell you a service to do that, but they charge quite a bit of money just for SMTP outgoing. But you can do that. You can pay somebody else to accept your domain and say, okay, I want to send email going out of Braxme, and I don't want to set up a SMTP server for outgoing. And so you can just hire another company to do that. I use Amazon AWS for outgoing. So I have a volume account. I can handle, thousands of messages. I can handle, I don't know, 20,000 messages an hour or something. That's my account. So I have a large email SMTP service account that I have to pay for on Amazon. And I can then take everyone's traffic and aggregate it and send it to that account and filter it and make sure it's valid and send SMTP from there, only from authenticated users. You have to be authenticated. So can't use it for relay because there's no relay allowed. There's no relaying allowed. It's direct only for authenticated users. That makes it safe. Now that is very hard to maintain, so I can maintain that part without any problem. So I was thinking how to do this. How do I do this in a cost-effective way? It's actually quite complicated. Quite complicated. And thank you, Cypher. Thank you. So I figured out a solution. I'll tell you what I came up with. At least you know if you understood what I just said, you have the beginnings here of being able to do this yourself. It's a little complicated because you have to do your own DNS as well. You have to do, there's things you got to do on DNS. You got to do DKIM records. You got to do CNAME records. There's things that you got to do to identify yourself to the carrier that you're not a spam provider. So it's gotten kind of specialized. It's not something that the average person is going to know. So because of this, it's best to just farm that off to somebody else. So somebody like an external party, or in my case, me. So in my case, I wholesale the SMTP through Amazon, and that's the only way you can do it now. They don't allow you to set up an SMTP server on your own to send directly. The ISP will block it now, and then you will be blacklisted, and it may work for a short time, and then it'll stop, and you can no longer send messages from your server because it will be blacklisted, and Google and Yahoo and all these guys will not accept your mail. Okay, so a little bit complicated, and so I found out the solution for me. The solution is, to keep it simple, is to manage only one domain. So I just set up, today I set up a domain called braxmail.net. So that domain is on my DNS. I registered it with Amazon, and it's authorized to send email through Amazon using all the requirements for DKIM and all the different restrictions that they have. So it's an authorized and validated domain for sending email. So anyone that I allow can use braxmail.net to send email. Well, that alone is quite a big deal. That means, as long as you have a braxmail.net account, you can forward email through Amazon, and it'll get there because Amazon is a trusted provider for email. Linode doesn't provide this service, so I'm kind of stuck with Amazon on this. Now, what I found out was, in order to make this easy, is to set up individual servers with subdomains. So let's say that, let me pick one of your names in here, Mr. Cool. Mr. Cool. Let's say Mr. Cool wants to set up an email server. I can set up a server, a email name, which is rob@mrcool.braxmail.net. That's called a subdomain. Or maybe Freedom Forever. So it could be rob@freedomforever.braxmail.net. That's called a subdomain. So I can now register that subdomain as a unique email server with what is called an MX record. Okay, so that'll be a unique server now. Then what I do is then I set up a Linode. I set up a Linode with that server and then mark it as the one server handling the domain freedomforever.braxmail.net. And then that server will have postfix, dovecot, and pre-configured to do all that, plus all the cybersecurity and firewalls preset, pre-configured on it, plus a graphical interface to manage it. And then I hand that over to a client and say, it's yours, and it's on your Linode account. Not my Linode account, your Linode account. So you're in charge of it, and it's your server now, and that's it. You can now change the password on it, and then I can't access it anymore. And now you have your own private server. So that's pretty simple. And just to give you a comparison here, if I were doing this for a business to set up an email, it would take me, I'm going to guess, to set up an email for, a business, probably take a week of work. Can you imagine, an hourly rate for a tech guy? Not me, I'm expensive, but a regular tech guy charging maybe $100 an hour doing that. I mean, it's going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars to set up that server. So that's going to be expensive. I found out a solution by doing what I'm doing and keeping the SMTP separate, managing that separately. I found out by just handling the private portion, which is the incoming inbox portion, on a separate server, that I've isolated the traffic, and it will be a lot simpler, and it's going to be a lot less costly. So it's still not going to be cheap, but it's actually, you can set up an email server handling any number of email accounts on that domain, because there's no actual limit. If you want to set up 50 email addresses, you could do it. So so how much is this going to cost to do this? So I'm experimenting with this, and I'm telling you right now that this I'm just kind of like top of the head thinking about how much it would cost to maintain something like this. It's a lot of work to do. It's a little bit of hand holding, and I got to come up with a lot of prep documents to make sure that you understand what you want on it before we even start doing it, because it's very tedious. It's you're setting up a custom server. It's custom for every case. And then after we install it, somebody has to keep an eye on that server if there's a hack, to make sure you don't get hacked. So we have to give you information to maintain the server, because this is a Linux server. It could be hacked. You may need to do an upgrade, whatever. In this case, you can always start from scratch and reset it and restore from a backup, which we will teach you, and then you can go back to scratch. But what I'm thinking about is a service like this. We could probably do like this. You set up your own Linode account. You create or we create it for you, but you set up a Linode account, and we set up a $5 monthly server. So that's your cost for the server. It's $5. The cost of then you need a backup. The backup, I believe, is $2 a month. So that's $7 a month for the server. Okay, then we go in there and set up the server and do all that, and then configure with your email addresses, and then we give you instructions if you want to maintain it and add your own, and then you can do the rest yourself, or you can contact us if need be. I think we can do that for about $40 a month. Yeah, $40 a month is how much that would cost. I can't think of how we could justify lowering that, because that used to cost, like I said, several $1,000s a year to make. And with the kind of shortcuts I built in, I had to think about how to do this. And I think it can be done for approximately $40 a month, or what is that, $400 something a year. And then you can have as many email addresses as you want on the subdomain. And then you can manage it yourself, change the passwords, do whatever you want. Okay? So, that's an idea. It's a if there's interest in this, if there's interest in this, I can see about setting up a company to do this because I got to hire people to do this. I don't have time to go set up servers. I may be able to do a few just to test, but I couldn't handle a large number of these because it's a lot of work and I don't have that kind of time. But but if I do this, what are you going to get? You're going to get a permanent server of your own. Now you still have to pay me because you need the SMTP side. Without the SMTP outgoing, your server is only half there. Okay? So because I have to maintain the SMTP side, so it's not like your server's by itself. It's only half of it. The other half is the DNS and then the outgoing SMTP, which does not need you because it doesn't need any identifiers. The infrastructure for the rest of it does not need any identification and it's not really tied to your data. There's no data of yours. So we give you the password, we give you it's all ours. So kind of like a VPN service. You don't give it data. So if I, do we need to host it at Amazon? No, I'm saying Linode. Linode, $5 a month. I can't get you can do it on Amazon if you want. I can't get a cheap server. The cheapest server on Amazon is $26. If you want to do Amazon, I can do that too, but it's not cost effective. You're going to get paid $26 a month just for the server. I'm talking here about $5 a month for the server, plus my services to maintain, or my company service to maintain it. So, it's a specialty case. Obviously, this is much more powerful than you think because you don't have a limit on email addresses. You can have as many as you want. You can have as many if you want. Just set up an SES account yesterday. It took about 30 minutes. Do that. If you're an expert, set up a Zucking SES account and think if you really understand what that means. What the zuck does that mean to you? The whole point is to have a private server, not something that you don't want incoming mail going to Amazon. You don't want anyone from Amazon looking at your email. You actually have no idea what SES is. SES, the only value of SES, Amazon SES, which is what I use, is for outgoing in bulk. I do that. How are you going to do the incoming? Oh, some of these people just have no idea. So yeah, you're like the geniuses are telling me here that they know what's involved. It is very complicated. I use SES. It is extremely complicated. I have to fight with Amazon if some spammer comes in and hacks they close your account. So hell no. If you don't understand what you're dealing with here, you can't just go say, I'm going to use SES. Where the zuck is your server? Well, if it's not hard at all, I'm giving you the tip on how to do it. So yeah, do it for everyone then. Landshark here wants to offer the service for you for cheap, and then he can do it for all of you. So I couldn't do it before. This requires a lot of thinking to even do. I've been toying with this problem for, I'm going to say a year, maybe 2 years, because I couldn't come up with an answer that was cost effective. People have been asking me for offering private email servers for a long time, and it's really, really difficult to do. Really difficult. Really difficult. So Mr. Genius here says it's easy. Well, if it's easy, then you don't need any help. So if you think you can do it, Why don't you try it yourself first? Okay, I'll give you a tip. If you think you can do it yourself first. And after you spend the months of problems trying to figure out what's wrong, then you come back and I'll give you a solution that's a fraction of the cost and time. So, it's not easy. If anybody's here saying it's easy, they're zucked up. Okay, they don't know anything. They don't know anything. It is not easy. Okay? Definitely not easy. So, whoever says it's easy, zuck you. I mean, you're basically misinforming the people here, thinking they can all set up an email server. I couldn't even set up an email server myself for a long time because it's so specialized now. I used to run email servers for, I don't know how many email servers I've set up back even the 90s when this all started. I was running a lot of email servers for my own companies and for many, many different people, and I ran it for them on site. I had on-site servers. And it got so complicated that I had to give up. It's too much trouble. It's just too complicated to figure out. So anyway, the solution, I gave you the solution. The solution is the SMTP is actually where it gets really, really complex, outgoing. And the solution is for me to handle that and then leave you with just the inbox. And then that's your server. I run the server for outgoing, and then I can worry about that part because that is the most complex part. Okay? So, and again, the idea here is if doing something like this, it's your own server running on your own Linode account. I don't have any participation in it. And if you want us to give service, you can give us the password. Then you can change the password back, and then you won't be able to have access. Okay, so that's if you're interested in that kind of solution, then I'm thinking that I can provide that service. I don't know. It depends on the interest here. If no one is interested, then I won't do it. I'm only offering this because a lot of people have asked me. At the moment, I don't know of any solution other than to have your inbox open. Right now, all of your inbox is open. Your inbox, and most of you use IMAP. IMAP means your emails on the zucking server of the Gmail and Yahoo and whatever, which means they can read your email forever. Forever. Okay? So if anyone is interested in this, I'm curious, give me feedback give me feedback. You can talk to me on BraxMe. And depending on how many people are interested in this, and I'll have to form a company. This is not something I can start up, immediately. It will take me a few weeks. So, I got to hire people, train people to do this. I got to supervise the first attempts at doing this. I already created a test one. I did a test one today. And I was successful. It took a long time, but, got it done. So I just want to make sure you understand why it's different. Somebody said $40 a month. That's a lot of money for email servers. I don't know what you compare it against. Compared to what? What are you comparing it against? There's no equivalent. The only equivalent would be thousands and thousands and thousands more a year. There is no equivalent because you can't set up your own email server. I mean, you rely on somebody's email services for free or for cheap, and somebody's reading your mail. So there's no comparison. Okay? Oculus is owned by Zuckbug, yes. So JB, yeah, that's exactly what I recommend. Then I can set up the infrastructure for this. I don't have this 100% running yet. I have partially running. There's still a few puzzles to solve, but I'm getting there. I'm almost there. And you can imagine how difficult this is because you got to set up a server, set up the HTTPS certificate for it. You got to do the cybersecurity things to basically harden this. We have to harden the server. We have to put firewalls. We have to configure the postfix and the dovecot. We have to run an interface called webmin. You got to load the Apache 2 and PHP and all the different good stuff on the server. There's a lot of stuff you got to do on the server. It's a lot of stuff. Okay, I'm not ready yet, Mr. Cool. This is not ready yet. This is a few weeks away here. But if there's interest, I want to know what the interest is. If there's enough interest, then it could be one of my projects. You know, the nice thing about my channel, what makes my channel different, is I'm kind of here not just to teach you, but you know, I have the skills, so I can give you a solution. I can come up with solutions technically if it's within my realm to provide it in a reasonable cost. What I don't want to do is do consultation for expensive amounts of time. If I had to consult with somebody, and say, okay, you want to learn how to do this, okay, and let's say I charge you $300 an hour. I mean, my goodness, I mean, you'll run that up in no time if you don't know what you're doing. So it's not even worth it for me to do that. It's, first of all, it doesn't pay for me. I mean, consulting doesn't really pay. I have to be paid a lot more for it to be worth it. Otherwise, I don't really have time for it. So by doing it like this, then I can basically pass the knowledge to somebody else. I'm going to get some young people to do the setup. And then with written instructions from me on how to do it. And then it'll be a lot simpler. So that's the plan, at least. I don't know why Rob avoids mentioning Graphene OS. I don't avoid mentioning Graphene OS. So anyway, I'm Brack sounds like a bit of a big shot. What does that mean? I'm interested. Get rid of the rest of the peakers. So email drug dealers use. Hire my son. He's looking to get experience. So yeah, actually this project does not require any physical presence. It'll just be following my instructions word per word and installing Linux basically without any kind of use of any knowledge other than following extremely detailed instructions. And I'm starting to write that today. So I just kind of tested the process of getting it done to see if I could do it. And obviously the biggest part is teaching each user how to set up their own email accounts. So it could be set up maybe with one account, and then you have to add new accounts and their passwords, and that's where it gets more tedious. So I got to teach people how to do that, and it can be done. It can be done. So anyway, that's something that took a lot of thinking over the years, and I could not find a good solution. So this time I actually sat down and really thought deeply about it, and I think we have a reasonably good answer. Maybe someday in the future, there will be some way of doing this in an automated way. Right now it's still pretty manual. Okay, so this service would be will be using the domain braxmail.net, which I bought today. So braxmail.net is a new domain. I just bought it. Okay, so I guess we can use any domain, but to make it easy, it's really complicated to use your own. If you want your own domain, it's extra work. You have to do DNS. You can do it, but hard for me to do it for you. because you need access to the domains and all that. So if you have somebody that can do it, you could change the domain of the server to something else. Okay, so it would be possible, and then you'd be free from me. But you can't use SMTP. The way that SMTP works, the only way this will work is if you're using the domain braxmail.net, and then SMTP works. If you're using your own domain like jamesmason.com, it's not going to work because you have to validate every single domain to Amazon. So it's very, very complicated. What if you want to run an onion domain? Well, that's not email though. Onion domain is run as a server. So if you want to make a website onion domain, yeah, you can do that. That's not part of this project. I know how to do that, but that's a different project. That's nothing to do with it. We can have multiple addresses under one inbox or would be issued for this. You can have multiple domains, multiple emails, aliased. It's called aliasing, and will go to one inbox. That's called aliasing, so you can do that. Or you can have multiple inboxes. Either way, those are all doable. So for example, I have an alias, so I have many names going to the same inbox. I also have separate inboxes. You can do any combination of that. Okay, so it's really more powerful than you think. This is not like going to Gmail. I mean, this is more powerful. You can, do an alias domain. You can do all that. And that's all. There's no extra work for that. That's just, we just need to know it in advance. And then teach you how to set it up. You can set it up yourself. We'll just document it. So I did make an onion site, Great Gold, but and I got it running, but then it was like, who was going to use it? It's like an extra cost for a server, because you need a separate server to run an onion domain, and a separate server with no benefit, because it's got to have a lot of users. So, okay, so that's the idea. If you're interested in it, go to BraxMe and talk about it. Maybe I'll create a different chat group for that, so that we can talk about, what this project means. And then I can probably, I'm going to guess, I could probably take a few accounts, not that many, but a few accounts, like even in a couple of weeks at the earliest. And then not big volume though, just 2, 3, 4 accounts, and then run that for a bit and see if there's any issues. And I could probably do that. In coming 2 weeks. So it's doable. There's still, like I said, there's some issues I haven't resolved yet, but I tested it all and it seems to work. Can you set up a service to receive text messages and ability to reply to them? Yes, but that's a whole different project, TB. That's a completely different project. Yeah. It's all SMS goes to wholesaler. So if you're going to do that, you're going to have to go to wholesaler and all that. And I used to do that, so I know how to do that. But that's a different project, and that's not really what I'm working on right now. So one thing at a time. Be right back, making an onion site. Okay. So virtual email server for the company name idea. Virtual private mail server. Well, you don't want the name, virtual anything. So the name that I use is pretty generic, braxmail.net. So it doesn't imply anything. I don't want it to say, oh, this is a secure email or anything like that. It's got to sound pretty benign. So you can have any subdomain you want. So let's say you have your own company. Let's say maybe you sell pizza, and and your company is called Beach Pizza. There's an actual Beach Pizza. But, okay, let's say your company is Beach Pizza, and then you set up an email called a domain called beachpizza.braxmail.net. So there you go. Then that's your own. That's your own domain. You don't have to pay for domain cost. So that's provided for free. That's included. The domain is included. The HTTPS certificate, all that's all included. You don't have to do anything else. So it's really gotten complicated, but I do all that. AT&T will not activate new 3G phones. That's a year ago. They haven't activated in over a year. Blooming onions. Okay. Pizza mail. Pizzamail.net. Okay, so that's an idea. That's a bit long for a domain. Well, Braxmail is not. It has to be easy to say. It's not necessarily the length of it. It's got to be easy to say. Okay. I have other domains like ibytes.io, which is very short. Okay, so that's I use that for the VPN. Bytes.io. For example, I could use that, but it's harder to say. So the easier to say than the easier to tell somebody. Oh, you can contact me at beachpizza.braxmail.net. I'm Rob at beachpizza.braxmail.net. It's easy to say. What about XMPP using Swift? XMPP is awesome. Yeah, bytes mail, that's hard to spell. People don't know how to spell bytes. So, how much? How much is what? What do you think of the Faraday cage bags? I mean, Faraday cage bags obviously can work. The problem is how to use your phone. So it's like plus and minus. I mean, why don't you just turn it off? Why are you using the battery? Just turn it off. Is NordVPN good? Hell no. I'm not telling you to do anything in email. I'm just telling you right now. I'm telling you right now that your email is being read. So forget about, I'm using encryption using GPG. Yes, I have a video on that. So okay, cost you $8 a month. What cost you $8 a month? You can set up your own server for $8 a month. You should offer that to everyone. If I can set up my own private server for $8 a month, I'll go to you. Trust me. I mean, I can't even pay for the server for less than $5 a month. That's for the server. Some of these people, it's like, I can offer that $8 a month for a non-private server. You're sharing a server so somebody can read your email. Yes, do that. If you can't understand the difference between a private server and a server where you're sharing with other people that can look at your email, then you don't understand what I'm talking about. They need to go someplace else. Okay? What website host do you recommend? Go run Linode. So anyway, yeah, $8 a month. You're right. Okay. Why would I even pay $8 a month? Free. Outlook.com, Yahoo, Gmail. It's free. Then I'm not even gonna. If I'm gonna be spied on anyway, of course I'm not gonna get paid. I'm not gonna pay for it. Now, if you don't want to get spied on, then you have to pay for it. Okay, $2 a month. Yeah. You need your own server in your own. You can't. You won't have access to the trunk, to the internet trunk. Your ISP will not let that happen. So you can't have it in your house. It's got to be in the cloud. You can't have it in your house. That's a given. Does Brax own shares of Linode? No. Linode is my sponsor, but I'm only thinking about this because it's the cheapest. you know, you want to go at Amazon AWS, I'm fine with that too. It's $26, the cheapest server, which is so bad. It's really a bad server. It's like half a gigabyte of memory for $26 a month. So if you want that, yeah, then we'll up the price. So $26 a month just for the server, plus my services from my company. I mean, you'll be over $1,000 a year pretty quickly. So if you want to use that option, that's up to you. So some of you will say, "Oh, I already got an AWS account, and I want to use that." That's fine too. I don't really care. You could do that if you want to do that. You can do that. But you set up your own account, your own server. We install on your server. Okay? So it's your server, not mine. We will install on it. So, you know, if you want to go watch what we're doing on it, in theory, you could. What's the best app to add another phone number? Like I said, have a real phone number, and then at least in the US, I use Google Voice. Because I'm only using it for two-factor authentication. Text-only option. Haven't found a really good one on that. I don't need to relay to anybody else because I can tell you right now, you can look at the price of SMTP outgoing using any number of providers from MailChimp to SMTP.com and all that, and they charge quite a bit of money. You know, $30 a month. Not unusual. And if you're low volume, that's kind of a lot of money. So what I'm talking about is I do everything, including setting up the server for, including SMTP, including the domain, including the HTTP certificate, basically everything, for approximately $40 a month. So that's my plan. At the moment, that's what I'm shooting for. Okay, so that's pretty good deal to be able to lower the price that much. It's a multi-$1,000 project brought down to mass production level. Okay. What will it cost to end in my domain? Probably some consulting time there, because you have to talk to your own person to change the domain. And you have to use your own SMTP. I can't do that. You have to use an external SMTP provider. So you could do it, but it'll cost more. Okay, so you're gonna have to, I'll pass you on to a different SMTP provider, and you can use your domain with them. But the way I can lower the cost is by not having your domain for outgoing. Incoming can be anything, but outgoing, yeah, I can't do the solution with your domain. With your domain, it's more expensive. It can be done, but I'm not planning on that right now. Okay. I'm going to put Ting link. Yeah. For those who want to do the Ting idea, I'm going to put it in the description. It's also on my Braxme profile. So if you're on Braxme, you can see the Ting profile in there. And then if you're going to use this Ting solution, by the way, I forgot to say this about Ting before I leave here. I like to change my phone number on Ting. So you used to be able to get, like, I used to buy 50 SIM cards, no, not buy, get it for free, 50 SIM cards from Ting.com, and I would be able to change phone numbers every month. And they expired my SIM card, so I can't do that anymore. So I called them up and said, I need to be able to change my phone number frequently. So send me 5 SIM cards. And I wasn't extreme. I didn't say 50. I just said 5. They said, okay. They didn't ask me questions. They sent it to me. So now I have 5 SIM cards from Ting. So I can change my phone number that I'm using for two-factor authentication as often as I want. Ting is an MVNO of T-Mobile. There are only 3 carriers. Google is not a carrier. Google Fi is not a carrier. Google Fi is an MVNO. Ting is an MVNO. Mint, Patriot, Cricket, Republic, all that. Those are MVNOs. They don't actually have their own network. The only networks are T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T in the U.S. Okay, so don't come to me and say, your phone is not supported by such and such. And it's like, no, that can't be. Because there are only 3 providers. Like my Pixels, like this is a Google Pixel here. This is a Pixel 4a. Okay, so this Pixel 4a works on all 3, which means it works with everyone. Okay, TracFone is MVNO. Please listen to me. There are only 3 carriers. Only 3. If I didn't mention it, it's not a carrier. T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. That is it. That is it. Everyone else is just a reseller, or otherwise known as an MVNO. Virtual, what is it? Virtual something office. Mobile virtual whatever. I forget what the acronym means. But MVNO means they're faking it. They're a reseller. Yeah, I don't like Verizon myself. Okay, they're a bit of a pain. Okay. Sprint is no longer around. There is no longer a Sprint. It's T-Mobile now. You can't even fire up a Sprint phone anymore. Okay, Sprint is gone. It's T-Mobile. Okay. Multi-virtual network operator. There you go. I wasn't going to look that up. Okay. DMR. What is the purpose of DMR? You go through the internet, they can spy on you on the internet. Then they even list your, name as you call on DMR. So no DMR for me. Okay. What is the safest dumb phone? I don't really have a good answer for you at the moment. How do you feel about dual SIM card phone? They work fine. Just do not do eSIM. Do not do eSIM. Do not get a phone that is eSIM only. That is zucked up. Okay, then you can't remove it. You're in Canada. US phones work in Canada. So if a phone, I say, works in all of the carriers in the US, it's going to work in Canada. In fact, all the phones work in Canada. Every single one. Yes, Bobby is the man. That is what I was talking about, is how not to provide you with an email service, but to provide you with a customized private server. Watch the replay. For those who just coming in now, the first 30 minutes talked about phone numbers. The rest of the time was spent talking about how I can set up an email server for you with a new company that I can form. And it'll be a custom server of your own. It'll be your server, not my server. You will be the only one on that server. There will be no other clients other than you. It'll be your own private server, and it'll be a way that will not cost thousands and thousands of dollars. That's usually how much those cost. I found a way to do this, and I'm approximating right now. It will probably cost $40 a month for this server of your own server, and you can have as many email addresses and as you want, or aliasing how many email you want to do to one account. That's all in there. Okay, I'm out of time. If you are interested in what I'm talking about, I want to get feedback. I haven't started this. This is just an idea, and if it's if there's enough to justify the market here, and I get some input from you guys, and if the price is okay, it's doable. I can't go lower than this. It's probably the lowest I can go. So I basically say, what is the lowest number that can justify this, that I can justify? And that's the lowest it would cost, and it's a lot of work. Okay, we even have to, keep an eye on your servers all year. So that's a lot of work. Anyway, so talk about it on Brax.me. Just maybe I'll set up a different chat group for that so we don't clutter up different chats. And then this is a service I could start testing out with the first few users probably in a couple of weeks. Okay? It's not ready yet. Not ready yet. Couple of weeks. I just did my first test today. It worked fine. But it's going to take a couple of weeks to do it. Okay? Thank you very much, guys, and see you next time. And see you next week with the next video. Bye-bye.